everyone. This is Brent, the weatherman, and I'm the host for Canadians with Disabilities today. And we have Sonia Furstenau joining the show. Hello, Sonia. And she's the MLA for the Green Party for Lake Cowichan. And what was the other area?
It's for the Cowichan Valley, Brent. Yeah, it includes Lake Cowichan, Duncan, Mill Bay, Cobble Hill, Cowichan Bay, Shawnigan.
I tried to memorize all those above, and I'm thinking, wow. It's such a great pleasure having you on, Sonia. Thank you so much for coming on to the show today.
Yeah, I'm really delighted to be here, and I really want to thank you for the invitation. And I appreciate the opportunity to have a conversation and to hear.
Yes, it's so many pressing issues for sure affecting people's lives, considering the people with disabilities that are well below the poverty line in British Columbia and actually everywhere across the country and every province. We live in such a wealthy country that it just shouldn't even be something that is a discussion, but here we are, definitely are, and things that need to be changed. And I wanted just your perspective on how do you see things that, moving forward with stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's important for me to start and recognize I'm abled, and so I can't the experience or perspective of a person with disabilities, but I am absolutely invested in understanding and listening and advocating for people with disabilities. I think that we have for way too long neglected the reality that people with disabilities are facing, and as you point out, so much of that reality is rooted in systemic poverty. People on disability assistance are forced to live well below the poverty line. No real recognition or acknowledgement of the additional costs that come with disability, and the income inequality that you talk about at the beginning. When we have 1% of Canadian households controlling more than a quarter of the wealth in this country, and 40% with less than just over 1% of the wealth, we have some real serious inequality and disparity issues in Canada.
Oh, absolutely. And, especially with, the cost of living going up, Stats Canada just came out today with the new report stating as of in the month of May is now 7.7 as an average. I mean, as we know, the costs are much higher than 7.7, but that's just an average amount. And that's it's outrageous because it just affects your grocery bills. I mean, everything from gas, I mean, you name it. But they say the gas is the number one culprit. That's why inflation's going up. But I think there's other components that are involved with that too. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And for people living on fixed income and particularly on disability income, without seeing significant increases to that for so long, and then to have the clawback of the COVID adjustment, it's really a lack of recognition of how entrenched poverty really is such a significant part of what we have to be talking about here.
Yeah, and that's I was just going to mention about the clawback. That is like when that came out in beginning of COVID in 2020. It was kind of reviewed every 3 months, and it seemed to be doing really well for people, changing their lives, benefiting them in so many ways of all the added expenses that come along with a disability. Basically on top of inflation. I mean, inflation when that came out was already climbing, and now it's just way so high. So when they decided to take that away, when they made the announcement at the end of December of 2020, they said, well, they're going to cut it in half. And then by the end of March, people were outraged in the disability community in the province, and we rallied and we protested and said NewsHour said, well, how would that change your life if it was taken away? I said, well, it would be just detrimental to one person's their mental health, their physical health, their well-being, right? And so the government said, I guess, okay, well, we're going to keep it in, but we'll replace it with $175 of the 300. They couldn't just give back, Sonia, they couldn't just give back the 300. No, we're going to give you back 175 of it, but as a permanent increase. Now, recently, I actually talked to the minister recently before the House rose for the session. The minister said, well, yeah, we gave an increase last year. Like, we gave back the 175 last year. I go, right, but nothing this year. I mean, well, inflation's gone up through the roof. But he said there's more to do. There's always more to do. And I thought, wow, okay. But that's kind of where things are at with it.
Yeah, and for me, this comes down to, when we think about what government should be focused on and the orientation of government should be, one, you need to ensure that people's basic needs are met. Housing, being able to afford healthy, nutritious food, access to services like health care, access to community, access to transportation and transit. We really have to ask ourselves, and I think about this a lot. I know we just got the announcement of the museum. They're backing off of that. That was such a clear example of a government kind of showing its priorities, that in a province where far too many people's basic needs are not being met, we have to get really focused on the must-haves in our province and in our society, and affordable housing, but access to housing, livable wages for people and of course, for people with disabilities. A non-punitive system, a system that doesn't say, oh, you can't be married, we're going to claw back your benefits. Oh, you can't go and get meaningful employment because we're going to claw back your supports and benefits. Like that, to me, that kind of underpinning of punitive in the system is indicative of how far off base we are when it comes to recognizing the absolute need to meet people where they're at and to ensure that all the basic needs are met.
Oh, absolutely. Especially with having the adequate resources in place, where you're putting less strain on people put less strain on the healthcare system, right? Mm-hmm. Because if you eat healthy food and have the proper resources, where, like having transportation, public transportation is the key to open up opportunities. People traveling to communities where they need to go and see a doctor, or they need to go and see family, go and visit some friends. I mean, get out, enjoy the community, and put your resources back into the community that they want to go and visit or live in. And if you don't have the proper resources, like a basic means of transportation, mm-hmm. like transit, I mean, as an example, like going from Victoria to Duncan, you can only go in the evening and then come back early in the morning, but nothing during the daytime. Mm-hmm. During the weekday, Saturday, you can do a round trip, but I mean, that's great, but then you're limited, right? So if a person wants to spend, maybe a few dollars into a community and like say Duncan and go there for the day, I mean, it helps small businesses grow too. And that with the wealth, it gets spread around the community for sure. But if you don't have it, then you feel isolated as a disabled person in the community that you live in. Mm-hmm. And then you're kind of limited of where you can go and do your shopping too, right? I mean, mm-hmm. So, and it's a spiraling effect for sure, right? And I think people should have the adequate resources. I mean, well above the poverty line. Some may say, well, what is the figure above it? Well, just give people the money that they need, and then they can figure out what's mm-hmm. best for their needs, like lived experience, right? And that's what the whole thing's about, is people who have disabilities, they have the lived experience, like they live the life, they live it every day. And so they know what their needs are that are best for them. And what government always has excuses of saying, well, there's more to do, or we've got your back, or all the different little lines. Well, just raise the rates already.
We're doing our level best.
yeah. And here's another one though, Sonia. It's the one part it came to my mind. Actually, your question for Sonia. Oh, Sonia. Yeah, Sonia's got a question here for you. Actually.
Hi, Sonia.
Hello, Sonia.
My question is, when the budget came out this last, I think it was when was it? Fall?
In the spring.
Yeah.
Spring.
Yeah. They gave the youth going out of care a big increase, $600 to their shelter mm-hmm. portion.
$600.
And I think they gave money to their support also. In total, it was over $1,800.
A $600 increase.
Yeah, so it came up to $1,800. So why can't they do that for people with disabilities?
Yeah, I totally agree, and particularly given that how unaffordable housing is and how inadequate the shelter rate is.
At 375.
Yeah, I mean 375.
I know it's 15
in
years
my
now.
entire adult life, I've never had rent at that level. And I often say a government will tell you its priorities by where it spends money, and that there was no new funding for people with disabilities in the 2022 budget, and no recognition that, of course, the inflation and the cost of living going up is going to have a greater impact on people with disabilities. And just as you say, it's not enough to have nice words, oh, we're working on it, or we've got your back. It's really important to recognize this is a matter of recognizing the responsibility government has.
Well, like I say, with the stats cam when they came out with that, but today actually they said it's the worst it's been since 1983. Yeah, and I was like, wow. So I mean, that kind of mentions like how the buying power, how that affects, like it just erodes away your value of a dollar. I mean, what you used to be able to buy for $100, you could probably get maybe the value of maybe $40 of that now, maybe 50. So. I mean, you look at the cost of produce. I mean, wow, yeah, it's just crazy prices. Or your basic staples, eh?
Especially when you're diabetic, it's hard.
Well, when you're diabetic, as you would know better than I do.
I'm
right.
finding it very difficult.
Yeah, she has to, eat a special diet, right? And I mean, or some people take it for granted. They say, Brent, you can just eat like a horse, or just grab what you want. Well, no, I mean, in certain things, yeah, I still have to watch what I eat. But Sonia, for sure, she has to really watch what she eats because it affects her sugar levels, eh? And that's things when you don't get the right amount to budget for it, then it can really affect things of decision making of what you need and what you don't need, right? So,
well, and the effects of living with that kind of constant stress and worry about just meeting basic survival needs is, we know that we're not at our best in those kinds of situations, that is a very hard on our health, on our mental health, and the cost to people and the cost to us collectively is significant.
Yeah, I was going to say that it costs money to keep people poor.
Yeah,
because it costs a lot on the health bill too, right?
I'm on the health committee, and our committee is tasked with bringing forward recommendations around the drug poisoning crisis in British Columbia. And we've been hearing from just a huge range of people, and especially this week, a lot of people were downtown in Vancouver, and exactly what was just pointed out, the cost of poverty is enormous. And the impacts to the healthcare system, the impacts, the cost to the continued war on drugs really is extremely costly. And if we were investing in meeting people's needs, in housing, in ensuring that people have access to healthcare, mental health care when they need it, we would be in such a better place.
One of the figures we heard today from a woman who works at Covenant House here in Vancouver is that the cost of accessing the supports for a person without a home in Vancouver is $53,000 a year.
Wow, that is a lot.
Yeah,
just for
one person.
Right, I mean,
and I think that when we have to look at the economics of poverty, and I totally agree. We should be absolutely oriented towards a poverty elimination strategy. There is enough wealth